Nicholas Woodkey here, author of the Black Needle series. These are the 3 books that I've written of it so far. Parabolic Magnetic Key, Blunt but Imminently Fatal Projectile, and Deserved Contorted Relics. There's 7 books in the works, for which the 4th one I'm currently writing. And for today, I will start from the beginning and read from Parabolic Magnetic Key. This one is full of adventure, humor, philosophy, battles, battle strategy, witticisms, all kinds of exciting things for a fantasy book. Here we go. The mountain was undefeated. The mountain was powerful. It stood mightily within grasp of the pinnacle of final victory. Doing all within its power to impede the competition, the mountain summoned every facet of obstruction it knew existed. But in the end, it couldn't establish superiority and was unexpectedly defeated. He finished the climb to the mountaintop, sighed, looked down below from a lofty precipice, and meditated on all elements presented during the journey. Driven, he stepped off the precipice, turned his eyes forward with purpose, and started the self-proclaimed mission to summit the next mountain. When completed, exhausted, he spent the same amount of time contemplating on that journey as he did after the first, but this time he was able to compare the 2 contrasting challenges, judging which added more to a state of self-worth, contentment, and morality. He utilized a whole host of factors in his comparison, including, but not limited to, rarity of opportunities to present the feat, implementation of natural talents, difficulty of the tasks relative to energy expenditure, contribution to attributes required for other mountainous exploits, and negative effects. Upon the finalization of his deliberation, he realized he needed more information, so he set to move right into the ascension of the 3rd towering mountain. When this new, brave, foolish voyage was completed, he started the comparisons all over again, but with the equation having an additional variable representing the 3rd mountain. He thought with great focus, but still answers eluded him. Bound and determined to know, he ever journeyed, searching the ultimate accomplishment. There was no rest. Persistence never left his side. The routine escalated into the 4th, 5th, and 6th mountain quests. Even these weren't enough, so he continued onward in true understanding of perseverance. Climb, contemplate, climb again. The pattern went on and on, seemingly indefinitely, chained to a driving obsession. One morning, a pair of particular adventurers came upon a formidable mountain and could see the contemplative mountaineer's footprints heading up the mountain. They scratched their chins in deliberation and decided to follow in his footsteps. And because others can learn much from what resulted, the adventurer's story must be told. Chapter 1. That was a prologue. Within sight of a creek merging, an aged and secluded log cabin rested impressively. The fact the cabin was so old and still standing wasn't what made it impressive, nor was it how year after year it remained dry as spring thaw caused nearby creeks to rise substantially and reach dangerously close. No, the impressive part was the great magnitude of a certain coincidence, the sheer chance that the cabin had spent more of its considerable long life being the temporary refuge for weary travelers than it had in the decades housing permanent residents. It was as if the cabin stood at the unimaginably exact intersection of every route taken by excursionists worldwide. The funny thing was, there were no well-worn main trails around it, only side trails, thin trails not much more than animal paths. For no known reason than happenstance, the cabin was a lightning rod for opportunists and impressively represented a coincidence most remarkable. It had been a memorable 24 hours, and an aforementioned duo of adventurers, both the sort who, if informed their story would be passed on through the ages, wouldn't object to the telling, ended nighttime dreams consisting of glory, specifically a well-earned glory that had been presented to them the day previous by the hands of an arm wrestling tournament. Content in having received a full night's sleep, Mick Thriker and Dave Greer nimbly levered themselves out of their warm-weather sleeping bags, stood, and cracked their joints. a joint cracking performed so precisely an onlooker would have thought the two had carried out the same routine for half their lives. Like most days, but not all, Mick and Dave woke to being surrounded by lovely Garab-and-Saravian lands. Not everyone considered Garab-and-Sarav to be all that lovely, but an overwhelming majority certainly did. Garab-and-Sarav was a country on the multi-climate continent of Tarask, which was said by scholars, judging by fossil evidence, to have been inhabited by people for almost 1 billion years, during which time civilizations had been built and rebuilt repeatedly. Constant failure and rebirth. For those looking, many vestiges of those civilizations could be seen strewn about the countryside. The land lacked the natural resources to sustain the advancement of science enough for continued civilizational growth, a theory once presented by an unknown individual, one of many names lost in time. Towns in Garab-and-Sarav were small, technology was limited, and travel was only accomplished by one's own feet. Greatly free from any of the nauseating verbal pollution that can sometimes be closely associated with people talking for the sake of talking, Mick and Dave planned, joked, and discussed personal observations while cooking portable breakfast foods in an abandoned cabin near creek merging. Mick and Dave were 31 and 30 years old, respectively, and of more or less average build, Dave being a little brawnier, Mick a little more aerodynamic. Both had facial features contributing to an exposition of wisdom, a display not as prominent as some, but more than most. Neither Mick nor Dave had ever been married, both childless. Since completing their youth, they had enjoyed a life full of adventure, trail, and road, a lifestyle which made it difficult to settle into the family life. However, they've had their fair share of girlfriends along the way. Mick and Dave's attraction to beautiful women was only separated by the fact Mick preferred blondes and Dave brunettes. After their longer-than-normal breakfast, Mick declared to Dave, "I think it's about the time when it would be advantageous for one of us to look out the east-facing window to see if there is something interesting sprouting, or if there's anything new with the army situation." "You sure unpacked a lot with that sentence," Dave loosed half a chuckle. "But yes, that sounds like time well spent. I think we should fill our canteens as well," Dave let be known as he tapped out the canteen's last drop of water onto his left hand. Mick yawned and replied, "Good idea. I'm gambling with running out of water, too. Do you want to look out the window to the horizon, or should I?" "I'll look, old friend." Dave peered out the dilapidated window, and besides a canopy of clouds, he could see the tail end of Offenkerke's army, an imposing mass miles in the distance. He figured they were probably headed for Zant. After performing a few mental calculations, Dave determined the figurative flag of proceeding was what he was going to present to his partner in adventure. "So, Mick, it looks like the Black Bear's armed force is unleashed, heading towards Zant, a thrilling development to be sure." The Black Bear was General Offenkerke's nickname, possibly given to him due to his enormous amount of black hair. Nobody knew the reason for certain. General Offenkerke's visage was rugged. Actually, he was one of the rare few whose facial features added more to a physical display of wisdom than Mick and Dave's. One look at the military leader, and you know in a second a man had experienced much. Mick proposed, "I think if we follow them, we will know best where General Anelski's dastardly crew is stationed." "Yeah, probably, if we ever do decide that Anelski is a step in our plan." "So by your assessment, then, would it be best for us to leave within the hour?" "Definitely. My legs are starting to tighten up a bit," Dave replied as he began stretching. Alrighty, I will stop for this segment, and I will do another segment possibly later.